The first blow landed with a sickening thud, dropping Tommy faster than any of us anticipated. One moment, my 73-year-old comrade, his frame frail but his spirit unyielding, was defiantly standing his ground. The next, he lay sprawling across the grimy, beer-soaked floor of the VFW bar, a crimson pool blooming from his split lip. "That's how we treat dinosaurs who don't know when to shut up," sneered the biker, his knuckles adorned with crude tattoos, "Hate" on the right hand, "Ride" on the left. A lumbering brute, his leather vest strained against a bulging beer gut, a faded, offensive Confederate flag patch emblazoned on his sleeve. Tommy coughed, a thin stream of blood escaping his lips, his arthritic hands scrabbling weakly for purchase on the slippery surface. A Korean War veteran, twice adorned with the Purple Heart, reduced to a humiliating crawl at the boots of a bar thug. My own hand instinctively darted for my phone, fingers trembling with a volatile cocktail of unadulterated rage and the tremors of Parkinson's. The screen blurred through the haze of my cataracts, but I didn't need perfect vision to send the pre-drafted text message I'd prepared hours earlier, sensing trouble when the bikers first swaggered in. "SOS VFW bar, code homecoming." The reply was instantaneous, a single, terse line, "Cavalry inbound. 20 minutes. Hold position." I slipped the phone back into my pocket, the cold metal a small comfort, and met the grim, knowing gazes of Frank and Bill across our scarred wooden table. Our silent consensus was clear: 20 minutes was an eternity in a bar fight, but we had faced insurmountable odds in the steaming jungles of Vietnam. We would hold the line. "Son," I rasped, my voice surprisingly steady despite my trembling hands, my gaze piercing the biker's arrogant smirk. "You just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic life." Veterans of foreign wars post-7/13 had been our sacred sanctuary for decades, a bastion against a world that rarely understood the ghosts we carried. Every Thursday at precisely 1900 hours, 5 old soldiers gathered at the corner table, a ritual as ingrained as morning reveille. We came to drink cheap, watery beer and share memories that, though priceless, came with a heavy emotional toll. There was me, the narrator, Tommy, the pugnacious heart of our group, Frank, our calm, philosophical anchor, Bill, the quiet, watchful sentinel, and Pete, what remained of a once larger, boisterous circle, gradually whittled down by the relentless march of time and the insidious creep of illness. We weren't the sole veterans who frequented the post. Scattered around the dimly lit room were men and women from more recent, equally brutal conflicts: Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. But Thursday nights, those hallowed hours, belonged exclusively to us, the dwindling last of the Vietnam generation in our forgotten town. Tonight had begun like any other ordinary gathering, a comforting rhythm of shared ailments and fading glory. Tommy, ever the hypochondriac, was predictably complaining about the side effects of his new heart medication. Frank, the proud grandfather, meticulously showed off blurry pictures of his newest great-grandchild on his ancient flip phone, a rare smile gracing his lips. Bill, stoic as ever, nursed a single, amber-colored beer, making it last the entire evening. Fixed incomes didn't stretch to spontaneous second rounds anymore. A silent, aching presence was Pete's empty chair. This was the 3rd week in a row he hadn't shown. Hospice care, a euphemism for the final holding pattern, had a strict schedule, and visiting hours ended at 5 p.m., well before our ritual began. The Iron Reaper MC thundered in around 8 p.m. half a dozen hulking men, swathed in custom leather cuts emblazoned with their ominous patches. They weren't local, their unfamiliarity was a palpable presence, just passing through, clearly looking for cheap thrills and easy entertainment in a town with notoriously limited options. They'd been loud, their boisterous laughter and crude jokes grating, but initially tolerable. That thin veneer of peace shattered the moment their leader, Knuckles, his eyes as cold and dead as a winter morning, noticed Tommy's faded, green Vietnam veteran cap. "Hey, Pops," Knuckles bellowed across the room, his voice deliberately abrasive, cutting through the general hum of the bar. "Your hat says Vietnam. You one of the baby killers, or just a grunt who scraped by in the latrines?" The bar went utterly quiet, the usual convivial buzz dying into an uncomfortable, suffocating silence. Every eye in the room swiveled toward our table, the air suddenly thick with unspoken tension. Tommy, a man who'd survived 2 tours of hell and returned home with fragments of shrapnel still painfully embedded in his back, turned slowly in his seat, his gaze fixed on the sneering biker, a lifetime of suppressed fury simmering beneath his aged exterior. "Son," he said quietly, his voice a low, dangerous rumble, each word deliberate. I'd suggest you enjoy your drink and leave the past where it belongs. It's not yours to desecrate. Knuckles merely smirked to his buddies, a cruel, knowing grin. Sounds like a ramp to me, boys. Real warriors don't mind talking about their kills. I instinctively put a restraining hand on Tommy's arm, feeling the tremor of suppressed rage beneath his sleeve. His blood pressure was already a precarious medical concern, and a physical confrontation, a true fight, would undoubtedly send him straight to the ER, or worse. Let it go, Tommy, I murmured, my voice barely audible above the rising tension. Not worth it. He's not worth it. But Knuckles, fueled by cheap beer and a festering arrogance, wasn't finished. He sauntered over, a half-empty bottle clutched in his beefy hand, towering over our table, his menacing shadow falling across Frank's cherished photographs, the faces of his family now obscured by the encroaching darkness. You boys look like you're past your expiration date. Why don't you clear out? Let real men use this table. Frank, ever the diplomat, the calmest head among us, tried to de-escalate. Plenty of tables available, friend, he offered, his voice soft, conciliatory. We'll be done soon enough. No need for trouble. I'm not your friend, old man. Knuckles growled, his voice thick with unadulterated menace, spitting the words. Then, with a deliberate, sneering grin that twisted his tattooed features into something truly ugly, he upended his beer, pouring the sticky liquid directly over Frank's array of precious photographs, soaking the smiling faces of his beloved family. Oops, guess your little brat's pictures got wet. So clumsy of me. That's when Tommy, his frayed patience finally snapping beyond repair, rose unsteadily to his feet. 5 feet 8 inches of elderly defiance, brittle bones and aching joints, facing down 6 feet of tattooed, aggressive bulk, a lifetime of silent sacrifice confronting raw, ignorant brutality. You need to leave, Tommy said quietly, his voice trembling only slightly, a thin thread of control. The punch came without warning, a blur of motion. Knuckles moved with surprising, terrifying speed for a man of his size, his fist connecting with brutal force against Tommy's jaw, sending his glasses flying in a desperate arc, shattering against the grimy floor. And that's how we found ourselves in a desperate, impossible standoff. Tommy bleeding, crumpled on the floor, 5 other bikers moving with predatory intent to surround our table, their leering faces a grim promise of the violence to come, and the rest of the bar patrons suddenly finding urgent reasons to look away, their gazes fixed on imaginary specks on the ceiling, pretending not to see the unfolding disaster. The young bartender, his face a mask of abject fear, was already fumbling for the phone behind the counter, but who would he call in this godforsaken town? Local police were a good 20 minutes out from anywhere relevant, and we didn't have 20 minutes. What we did have, however, was a deep, unspoken bond, and an unexpected ace up our sleeves. Reinforcements of our own, already en route, a silent, disciplined force moving with purpose. You have no idea what's coming, Bill said calmly, his voice a low, steady murmur, speaking for the first time that evening. The quietest of our group, a man of few words but profound impact, he'd served 3 tours as a sniper. His confirmed kills remained a number he'd never shared, even with us, a silent testament to the immense, invisible weight he carried. Knuckles merely laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound that grated on the nerves, clearly underestimating the steel in Bill's eyes. What's coming? He scoffed, his voice dripping with condescension. Heart attacks? Ambulances? Bedtime, old man. I gently helped Tommy back to his seat, pressing a clean, flimsy napkin to his profusely bleeding lip, trying to staunch the flow of crimson. Frank, I said, my voice conversational, attempting to project a calm I didn't feel, though my eyes never left the looming bikers, meticulously tracking their movements. How's your grandson Jake doing at Fort Benning? Heard he finished ranger school. Frank, carefully dabbing at his precious, now soaked photographs with a shaky hand, replied, his voice equally calm, an eerie composure. Finished ranger school last month, proud of him. Deployed to the base 20 miles north along with about 50 of his closest friends. Young Jake, he's a good kid. A natural leader. That right. I turned to Bill, a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker of a smile touching my lips, a shared understanding passing between us. And your granddaughter, Lizzie? She's still flying those Apache helicopters, Bill? Bill smiled thinly, a dangerous glint in his eye, a hint of the precision and lethality he once commanded. Made captain last year. Very protective of her grandpa. Doesn't like people messing with family. Not one bit. The bikers, despite their outward bravado, exchanged uneasy glances, a subtle tremor of apprehension running through their ranks. They sensed something beneath the deceptively casual conversation, a hidden depth, a dangerous undercurrent they couldn't grasp. What the hell are you old-timers talking about? Knuckles demanded, a flicker of genuine uncertainty now in his eyes, his earlier confidence wavering. Just catching up, Knuckles, I said, deliberately checking my watch, making the gesture obvious. Funny thing about veterans, you see, we're never really alone. Word travels fast. Especially when one of us gets hurt. You threatening me, old man? Knuckles leaned in, his breath stinking of stale whiskey and monumentally bad decisions, his bravado still clinging to him like a desperate shroud. Not at all, I replied, a calm, almost serene smile on my face, a predator's calm. Just suggesting you might want to finish your drinks and move along. Before the bar's front door crashed open with a truly terrifying military precision. As if on cue, a sudden, powerful force slammed against the heavy wooden door of the VFW post, sending a jolt through the entire building. The door swung inward with a controlled, almost surgical force, revealing the first imposing wave of our cavalry. 5 soldiers, young and formidable, clad in crisp, perfectly tailored army combat uniforms, entered. They didn't rush, didn't appear flustered, but moved with a palpable sense of focused purpose that instantly filled the room, replacing the chaotic tension with a chilling new order. Young, fit, radiating controlled tension, their eyes, sharp and professional, methodically scanned the chaotic bar, their gaze quickly locking onto our besieged table, chillingly direct, a silent, absolute command. Grandpa, the tallest one called out, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the last murmurs of the stunned patrons, a voice of undeniable authority. You okay? Frank, a relieved grin spreading across his face, waved his hand. Over here, Jake. Having a bit of a situation, son. Jake, 6 feet 3 inches tall, a towering figure of disciplined muscle, ranger qualified and combat tested in theaters far away, strode across the bar, accompanied by 2 equally formidable male and 2 female soldiers. No weapons were overtly visible on their persons, but they moved with the absolute, unshakable confidence of highly trained combatants, their mere presence a formidable, silent deterrent that radiated raw, controlled power. This him? Jake asked, his voice a low, gravelly rumble, stopping directly in front of Knuckles, his expression unreadable, yet radiating an undeniable, chilling authority that made the biker's bravado shrivel. Despite their similar builds, Jake's aura of silent menace made the hulking biker look suddenly small, almost insignificant, dwarfed by an invisible force. This gentleman, Frank said mildly, his voice now filled with a quiet satisfaction, gesturing with his hand towards Knuckles, thought it appropriate to assault Tommy and destroy cherished family photographs. He has a rather unique way of introducing himself. Jake's expression didn't change, but something cold, hard, and utterly ruthless entered his eyes, a flicker of pure, unadulterated menace, a promise of retribution. Knuckles, to his credit, didn't back down immediately, a last vestige of his arrogance. More dispute, not your business, soldier boy. See, that's where you're wrong, Jake replied, his voice still low, but now laced with a steely, dangerous edge that cut through the biker's bluster. Tommy served with my grandfather in the Ia Drang Valley. Saved his life twice in the jungles of Vietnam. He nodded toward me. Jack there was my grandmother's brother's best friend, fought beside her in the Gulf. Bill taught me to shoot when I was 12, taught me the true meaning of discipline, of precision, of lethal efficiency. His gaze hardened, fixing on Knuckles, boring into him. So this is very much my business. This is family. The bar door opened again, a rhythmic cadence of power. More uniforms. 10, then 15, then 20 men and women, soldiers from every branch of the service, different patches and insignia, Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, filing in quietly, strategically, swiftly, filling the room with their formidable, disciplined presence. What the hell is this? One of the other bikers demanded, his voice laced with growing, desperate panic, realizing their situation was far beyond a simple bar fight. A woman in captain's bars stepped forward, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, posture perfect, radiating calm, absolute authority. I'm Captain Lizzie Wilson, she stated, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the lingering tension. Bill's granddaughter. Got a text. Said there was trouble. A grandfather in distress. Just a few calls, I explained, a wry smile touching my lips, feeling a surge of pride and vindication. Word travels fast among military families. We have our own network, Captain. An unbreakable chain. The bar had transformed in mere minutes. Where there had been indifferent civilians looking away from conflict, now stood a formidable, silent, unyielding wall of uniforms, a living, breathing testament to the enduring power of brotherhood. Young faces with eyes that held the wisdom of old souls. Veterans from recent wars standing in quiet, unbreakable solidarity with veterans from older ones, their shared experience, their unspoken code, a powerful, palpable bond that transcended generations and conflicts. Nobody called the cops, Knuckles mumbled, uncertainty now undeniably creeping into his voice, his bravado deflating like a punctured tire, leaving him exposed. Didn't need to, Tommy replied, still dabbing blood from his lip, a defiant glint in his eye, the pain now replaced by grim satisfaction. We called family. Captain Wilson, Lizzie, a picture of professional concern, approached our table, kneeling beside Bill, her concern not just professional, but deeply personal, familial. You okay, Grandpa? Bill patted her hand, a soft, affectionate gesture. Fine, Lizzie. Just some excitement to break up the evening. Keeps us sharp, keeps us on our toes. She turned to assess Tommy's injury with the detached efficiency of a trained medic, her eyes clinically evaluating the damage. Need medical attention, sir? It's Tommy, and no, had worse shaving. Meanwhile, Jake and two other soldiers had strategically positioned themselves between the bikers and our table, forming an impenetrable, silent buffer zone of disciplined muscle and combat experience. They weren't threatening, not advancing, just standing firm, their mere presence a stark, undeniable message of force. Knuckles looked around, his eyes darting frantically, a desperate trapped animal, finally realizing how quickly and irrevocably the situation had turned. His crew of 6 now faced at least 30 military personnel, with more arriving by the minute as texts and calls spread like wildfire through the nearby base, a silent, unstoppable tide. We don't want trouble with the military, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper, his bravado entirely deflated, replaced by stark fear. Should have thought about that before assaulting decorated veterans, Jake replied, his voice dangerously low, a chilling promise of retribution. Tommy there has 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star, earned in the unforgiving trenches of Korea. Frank was at Key Sand for the entire brutal siege, a living testament to endurance. Bill served 3 tours as a sniper, kept countless men alive from afar with chilling precision. Jack was a medic who saved more lives than you've probably met in your lifetime, putting himself in harm's way for complete strangers, facing horrors you can't even dream of. How was I supposed to know? Knuckles whined, a pathetic attempt to deflect responsibility, his eyes begging for an out. You weren't, Captain Wilson interrupted, her voice cutting through the excuse like a scalpel, leaving no room for argument. That's precisely the point. You saw old men and assumed they were easy targets, disposable, weak. It never occurred to you they might be more than their age suggests. It never occurred to you that honor doesn't have an expiration date, that courage isn't diminished by a few wrinkles, that loyalty is a force more powerful than any street gang. The biker with Prospect tattooed on his cut, the youngest of the group, barely out of his 20s, tugged nervously at Knuckles' arm, his face pale with fear. Man, let's just go. This ain't worth it. This ain't our fight. Knuckles shrugged him off, a last, desperate flicker of alcohol-fueled pride overriding any semblance of good sense. We ain't done nothing illegal. He fell down, that's all. A new voice, calm and authoritative, yet resonating with an undeniable power, entered the conversation. The VFW post commander, a towering, grizzled figure, a retired Marine colonel with a steely gaze, who'd been silently watching the entire spectacle from the bar's office, emerged. Actually, I have clear video of you assaulting a patron, he said, holding up his phone, its screen displaying a crisp, undeniable recording of Knuckles' brutal punch, the evidence irrefutable. Normally, I just call the police and let them handle it, he stated, his voice flat, emotionless. But since family is clearly handling this, he looked at Captain Wilson, a knowing glint in his eye. How would you like to proceed, Captain? She considered for a long, silent moment, her gaze sweeping over the deflated, defeated bikers, then resting on the veterans. I think education might be more valuable than prosecution in this instance, Colonel, she stated, her voice thoughtful. A lesson learned the hard way can sometimes stick better than a jail sentence. We need to prevent this from happening again, not just punish these individuals. The colonel nodded slowly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips, acknowledging the wisdom of her words. Then, he addressed the bikers, his voice resonating with an authority that left no room for argument, every word a gavel striking justice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize, properly, sincerely, to these gentlemen, especially to Tommy, for the pain and disrespect you inflicted. You're going to pay for any medical attention Tommy needs, every single dime, no questions asked. You're going to replace the damaged photographs, every single one, and make sure they are perfect. And you're going to spend tomorrow, from dawn till dusk, at the VA hospital, volunteering with our wounded warriors, helping them with whatever they need, learning what true sacrifice, true courage, and true suffering looks like. You'll learn what honor means firsthand. Or, he gestured to his phone, I send this video to the county sheriff, and you spend tomorrow in jail, and potentially a lot more time, dealing with federal charges for assaulting a decorated veteran. Your choice. Knuckles looked ready to argue, a last, desperate spark of defiance, until Jake took a subtle, almost imperceptible half-step forward, his ranger tab visible on his shoulder, his eyes locked on the bikers, a silent, chilling promise of swift, inevitable action. Choose carefully, Jake suggested quietly, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that brooked no argument. The fight visibly drained from Knuckles, leaving him a hollow shell. Fine, he mumbled, his voice tight with unwilling submission, his eyes fixed on the floor. Sorry about your lip, old-timer, and the pictures. Tommy nodded, accepting the apology with more grace than any of us would have managed in his place, a silent, profound victory. Good start, the colonel said, his voice flat. Now, about tomorrow's volunteer session. After the bikers, their swagger utterly broken, had been escorted out, their deflated bravado replaced by sullen, palpable compliance, with clear, non-negotiable instructions for their immediate community service. The atmosphere in the bar transformed completely. What had begun as our quiet weekly gathering, a routine solace, had blossomed into an impromptu reunion, a vibrant, unexpected cross-generational gathering of warriors. Jake pulled up a chair next to Frank, his powerful frame settling gently, and carefully began examining the damaged photographs. I can get these reprinted, Grandpa, he said, his voice gentle, reassuring. Digital backups, remember? I've got copies of everything. They'll be good as new. Frank smiled, his eyes twinkling through the tears of relief, a rare, genuine warmth. Always prepared, just like I taught you, son. Never lose your memories. They're all we truly have. Across the table, Captain Wilson, Lizzie, her face showing professional concern blended with familial love, was meticulously checking Bill's blood pressure with a portable cuff. Once a medic before becoming an Apache pilot, she never visited without making sure his health was on track, a silent testament to her unwavering care. 135/82, she announced, her voice efficient, clinical. Not bad for all the excitement, Grandpa. You still got it. Your heart's as strong as your will. Bill patted her hand affectionately, his eyes soft with pride. Takes more than a few bar thugs to rattle me, Lizzie. We've seen worse. Much worse. The other service members had seamlessly distributed themselves around the VFW, their presence a quiet, formidable force. They bought drinks, shared stories, bridging the apparent gaps between wars and generations with a shared understanding, a universal language of sacrifice. A young Marine, his face earnest, was listening intently as Tommy, his swollen lip a badge of courage, vividly described the brutal siege of Key Sand, the sheer grit required to survive. 3 Army lieutenants sat captivated by Bill's understated, almost poetic, accounts of sniper operations in the dense jungles, the chilling precision of his work, the unseen battles fought in silence. I found myself beside a gruff staff sergeant with 3 combat deployment patches, his eyes holding the haunted depths of recent conflicts, comparing field medical techniques across decades. Tourniquets are back in, sir, he explained, a wry smile on his face, a veteran's gallows humor. Full circle from your day, I guess. Some lessons just get relearned the hard way, when you're out there, fighting for your life. Indeed, I agreed, a wistful nod, acknowledging the painful cycles of history. The colonel, a stoic observer, a silent pillar of command, pulled up a chair at our table, his gaze sweeping over the assembled generations. Jack, he began, addressing me directly, his voice softening, been meaning to ask, are you coming to the school's Veterans Voices program next month? We really need Vietnam vets to talk to the high school kids. They're trying to connect the generations, to show them what true history looks like beyond the textbooks. Still trying to recruit the next generation, Colonel? I teased, a playful glint in my eye, a spark of the old mischief. Still trying to help them understand sacrifice and service, Jack, he corrected, his voice serious, imbued with a quiet urgency, before it's too late. These kids, they think history started with 9/11, that freedom is free. They need to hear from your generation, the ones who truly lived it, while they still can. Before the last of you are gone, and your stories are lost forever. His words hung in the air, a poignant reminder of our dwindling numbers, the unspoken, undeniable reality of mortality. Tommy broke the momentary silence, his voice firm, resolute. I'll do it. About time I shared some stories. Get these kids to appreciate what they have, what they've been given. Me, too, Frank added, a new purpose igniting in his tired eyes. Bill simply nodded his agreement, his silent resolve more powerful than any eloquent words. I looked around at the unlikely, yet profoundly connected, gathering. Gray-haired veterans from conflicts long faded from public memory, their faces etched with the weight of untold experiences, sitting alongside young warriors still actively serving, their youth a stark contrast to our age, yet their eyes holding a shared depth. A universal understanding. The continuity struck me powerfully, how the enduring ethos of service, the unspoken code of brotherhood, connected us across decades and brutal battlefields, a golden thread woven through time. Count me in, Colonel, I told him, a lump forming in my throat, a profound sense of belonging settling over me. Might as well make ourselves useful while we're still vertical, while we still have voices. Jake laughed, a hearty, genuine sound, a bridge across generations. Grandpa says you'll outlive us all out of pure stubbornness, sir. That you'll be the last man standing. Your grandpa knows me too well, I chuckled, a warmth spreading through me, a quiet contentment. The night grew late, the cheap beer slowly dwindling. Younger service members gradually departed, a steady trickle, returning to base or homes, their duties awaiting. Each stopped, without exception, to shake hands, exchange quiet words, or offer a respectful nod before leaving, a silent ritual of acknowledgement. The initial atmosphere of crisis had utterly dissolved, evolving into something profound and comforting, like an unexpected, deeply personal family reunion, a balm for old wounds. Tommy, his lips still swollen but his spirit intact, raised his beer, a poignant, unspoken toast to the absent. To absent friends, he murmured, his gaze distant. Frank nodded solemnly. Pete sends his regards, I told the group, my voice softening. Hospice says he's comfortable. Might try to arrange a visit if he's up to it next week, all of us. One last time. The weight of Pete's precarious situation settled around the table, a stark, painful reminder of our diminishing circle, the inevitable, relentless march of time that no amount of battlefield courage, no amount of earned glory, could halt. Captain Wilson, Lizzie, a silent guardian, returned from seeing off the last of her soldiers. She stood behind Bill's chair, her hands resting protectively on her grandfather's shoulders, a tender, silent gesture of love and unwavering care. Need a ride home, Grandpa? Bill shook his head, a contented sigh escaping his lips. Jake's taking all of us. Monthly tradition. He drives us here. Make sure we get home safe. Best driver in the army, that boy. She bent to kiss his cheek, a tender moment, a quiet blessing. Good. I'll stop by tomorrow with those medications we talked about. And some home-baked cookies. Then, to all of us, her voice filled with genuine respect, gentlemen, it's been an absolute honor. Truly. Try to stay out of bar fights for at least a week. Please. My paperwork backlog is already immense. After she left, we sat in comfortable, companionable silence, finishing our drinks, the lingering taste of camaraderie sweeter than any expensive vintage. Quite a cavalry response, Tommy mused, touching his swollen lip, a faint smile playing on his face. Think we overreacted? Proportional response, Bill countered, his voice flat, a hint of his sniper's cold logic. They had 6. We had 30. Solid odds. Superior numbers, son. Still good tactics, Frank added, a wry grin, ever the tactician. Superior numbers, strategic positioning, clear chain of command. Classic. Worked every time. I thought about how quickly our simple text messages, our informal, unbreakable network, had mobilized what amounted to a small military operation. Young service members, many of whom had never met us personally, dropping whatever they were doing, leaving their comfort zones, to rush to the aid of old veterans. It's more than just family, I said, my voice quiet, filled with a deep, profound understanding, a truth that resonated deep in my bones. It's the bond, the shared experience, the knowledge that we're all in this together, no matter the war, no matter the decade, no matter the individual battle. It's the unspoken code. Jake returned from walking Lizzie to her car, his smile bright, a beacon of youthful energy. Ready to head out, old-timers? Past your bedtime. The van's waiting. Tommy stood, wincing slightly as his lip protested, a battle scar earned. Watch it, youngster. We can still take you. Don't test us. After what I saw tonight, sir, I believe it. Jake laughed, a genuine admiration in his eyes, a newfound respect for the old warriors. Then, more seriously, his voice dropping, a hint of grim reality. Those bikers are lucky you called us instead of handling it yourselves. Captain Evans made sure they understood that. Very clearly. Bill snorted, a dismissive sound. We would have won. At your age, sir? Jake raised an eyebrow, a teasing, skeptical challenge. Age just means we have less to lose, Bill replied, his sniper's eyes momentarily cold, a chilling flicker of the lethality he once commanded, a stark reminder of the dangerous man he once was, and significantly more experience hiding bodies, son. You'd be surprised what an old man can do. Jake's laugh faltered slightly, a genuine tremor of unease, unsure if his grandfather's friend was joking, a sudden, chilling realization of the quiet, enduring power these men still held. Frank gathered his damp photographs, his expression tinged with sadness, yet a quiet sense of closure. Don't tease the boy, Bill. He's got enough on his plate. He's got his own battles to fight. As we made our way to the door, the bartender, a veteran himself from the Gulf War era, his eyes filled with a new respect, called out. Same time next week. Gentlemen, you coming back? Wouldn't miss it for the world. I confirmed, a sense of quiet contentment settling over me, a promise delivered. Outside, the night air carried a hint of approaching autumn, a crisp reminder of passing seasons, of time moving forward. Jake helped Tommy navigate the steps, his strong arms supporting the older man, while Frank and Bill moved with the careful, practiced precision of men whose bodies had sometimes betrayed their still sharp minds, but whose spirits remained unbroken. You know, Jake said as he opened the van door, a thoughtful expression on his face, a new maturity in his eyes. Those bikers will be at the VA hospital tomorrow. Captain Evans arranged for them to spend time with recent amputees and TBI patients. An educational experience, she called it. A crash course in empathy. Fitting. Tommy nodded, a grim satisfaction in his voice, his split lip a testament to the cost of ignorance. Though, he added, a wry twist to his mouth, I almost feel sorry for them. The bikers? Jake asked, puzzled, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. No. Tommy grinned, despite the pain, a dark humor in his gaze. The wounded warriors who have to put up with those idiots. That's the real test of endurance. We laughed, a low, rumbling sound, as Jake helped us into the comfortable van. Old soldiers, once protectors, now being cared for by the very generation we'd once guarded. The profound, enduring cycle of service and respect, passing from one generation to the next, continuing despite a civilian world that often failed to understand either. Next Thursday would find us at the same worn table, drinking the same cheap beer, sharing the same precious memories, but something indelible had shifted tonight. A stark reminder that though our bodies had weakened, though time had taken its toll, the brotherhood, the unspoken code, remained strong, an unbreakable bond forged in fire. We had fought our wars decades ago, in jungles and rice paddies far from home, against visible enemies and unseen traumas. But tonight's small, unexpected battle on familiar ground, within the hallowed walls of our sanctuary, had reaffirmed what we'd always known, a truth etched into our very souls. Old warriors never truly retire, not in spirit, and they never, ever fight alone.